All right, people, we are live. And no, I'm not talking about religion or God today. I am talking about my other great passion, that is cricket. And I'm not going to be talking alone. I've got my cricket buddy with me, Johnno, who's a massive cricket fan, but obviously he lives in Australia. He's got an Aussie wife or partner, and he's got an Aussie kid, but he himself goes for the English cricket team. What a true pommy. How you doing, Johnno?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And I think you got everything correct there. She's my partner, not my wife. The kid is Australian, but when he grows up, hopefully we'll be playing for England instead.
Yeah, right. So you're gonna live here. You're gonna raise him here, and he's gonna be playing for England.
Yeah, that's the idea. Australia's got a better club cricket culture. You can play some really hard
Yeah.
grade cricket, and
So
then
you
walk
don't
straight
want
into
your boy to become a man?
he'll walk straight into the England squad when he's 23. That's the
Yeah,
idea.
right. Okay, well, let's hope he doesn't play cricket like his old man, because in that case, he's got no chance of playing either for England or Australia. Okay, guys. So we're talking about the oldest cricketing rivalry. Now, obviously, there is. Oh, I didn't turn that off. Obviously, lately we've been enjoying India-Australia rivalry. There's always been a rivalry between India-Pakistan cricket team, but this is the oldest and the most fierce cricket rivalry, the Ashes. Jono, how are you? How are you feeling? How are you feeling about your about the chances of the English cricket team?
I was feeling really, really good. Like really looking forward to the series for a while, especially after the pasting that Australia gave us last time around, 18 months ago or thereabouts. But then seeing Australia play India last week in the World Test Championships, that was a
That got you
reminder.
scared?
It was a reminder of just how good this Aussie team is.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess the big headline that everyone has been focusing on is that this is the New England team. This is the Stokes McCullum era. This is what everyone's calling Bazball. Um, it's a different England team that played in Australia 2021 to 2022. And it's a very different England team that played for the Ashes in 2019 in that series that was drawn 2-2. Australians seem to remember it as a win for Australia just because they retained the urn, but it was actually a 2-2 draw, that series.
Yeah, but the Australian team was just going through a rebuilding phase, and obviously, a lot had happened in the previous year or so. Obviously, with Smith and
Yes.
Warner and all that. So anyway, Ben Stokes, first series as a captain. Obviously, he's a very confident guy. Last series that you played in Australia, that was obviously, as you said, the thrashing that England got, and that probably ended Joe Root's tenure or career as a captain.
Yeah,
Ben
that's quite right.
Stokes. Yeah, but Ben Stokes is a totally different kind of player. So Paddy Cummins coming into this test series, no pun intended. Sorry, that's a different cum anyway. The way it's okay. So Paddy Cummins is a bit more experienced when it comes to captaining his side into the Ashes, but Ben Stokes first outing as a captain.
So his first Ashes outing as a captain.
Yes,
He's
first
been in
Ashes
charge,
outing. Yeah.
Since probably about this time last year. Actually, I remember getting on the plane to England June last year when we were chasing down a total on the fifth day of a test and getting off at Singapore and finding out we'd won. And that was I think it was against New Zealand, and it was a mammoth total we were chasing, and that was the sort of the first glimmer that something different was happening. And then we saw it throughout the rest of the English summer that particularly Bairstow just found that form that he had in 2016 all over again. Joe Root started playing that ridiculous reverse scoop for six over the slips. Ben Stokes was declaring the first innings. Players at the top of the order were scoring strike rates over 100. And yeah, it gave the bowlers time to start taking 20 wickets in test matches, which is something that under Joe Root, while they could take wickets, the batting he was carrying a lot of the batting. So this time around, with Stokes as captain, he's brought in a fresh and revitalised impetus, particularly at the top of the order. But that middle order is so strong now. And with his funky declarations and his crazy fielding placements, it's entertaining. That there's no other way around that. It's entertaining.
Okay,
But
so
it's also getting results. 11
we've
out of
got
13 wins.
we've got a couple of predictions coming in. Tish is saying 3-1 to Australia. Ridwan is saying 3-1 to England winning 3, so 3-1 to England. And Sujal is saying 5-0 England. Come on. Oh, come on. I think he's still sore because Australia gave the Indian cricket team, that thrashing that they received.
Well,
So
I'd love to see 5-0.
I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either.
I don't think it's going to happen. The best we can hope for, maybe 3-2 for England. And obviously, okay. Before we talk about the first Test match and the sides and the players to watch out for, the first ball of the Ashes. There's so much impetus put on the first ball of the Ashes. I mean, if you remember, was that 2007 Test series where Steve Harmison bowled a wide one, and that set the tone for the rest of the.
Went to second slip, yeah.
Yeah, it went to second slip, and England ended up losing that Test series. Now that was 5-0, wasn't it?
That was 5-0, yeah.
That was at the back of that 2005 Ashes Test series.
Yeah,
that was a turnaround.
That was a real low moment for a lot of those players. And England almost won 2 of those games as well.
Yeah,
they really grabbed defeat from the jaws of victory, I think, in 2 of the games. But if you're talking about first balls as well, the first ball of the last.
But also last in the 2019 as well. Mitchell Starc first ball bowled. Who was the left-hander? Well, I forgot his name.
Rory Burns.
Rory Burns. Yeah, is he in the squad? I don't think he's in the squad.
He's not. No. 2021 at the Gabba. That was.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
So depending on who wins the toss, it will either be, I'm guessing, Cummins or James Anderson taking the first ball.
Yeah.
And it'll be against Warner or Zach
Could
Crawley.
Be Starc. I reckon it's going to be Starc.
Maybe, but he hasn't been, last week he didn't bowl first. It was, I don't know, did he share the new ball with Cummins and...
Yes.
Yeah, he must have shared the new ball with Cummins.
Yeah, he did share a new ball, but Australians are, because obviously this is all mental games as well, because Australia would be hoping for a wicket first ball, and obviously the first ball of the Ashes, everyone's nervous, everyone's scared what's going to happen, and no one wants to get out. And that's when you get out. You know more than anyone, Johnno. The less you want to get out, the more you get out.
Hey, I've only had 2 ducks in my club cricket career.
Right. How many ones have you got? The rest are just 1 or 2s.
I got a top score of 10. But
okay, that's good.
You and I have a lot in common because neither of us have got a century, have we?
That's true. Jason Gillespie's got a double 100, but none of us. No, hang on. What's his name? Ricky Ponting hasn't. No, who hasn't got a double 100? I think. Yeah, some. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There are a lot of players who haven't had double 100s. But okay, so let's get into the first test now. Obviously, there's a big question mark on Zach Crawley.
Yeah, everyone's
geeing him up. Bazball, McCullum has supported him a lot, but what do you reckon? How do you see him faring in this first test match? I don't think he should be there. What do you reckon?
So I've got to admit a conflict of interest here. I am a man of Kent, the English county of Kent.
Kentish. Oh, right.
It's there on the glass.
Right.
And Zach Crawley is also a man of Kent. So I've been a passionate fan of his since he's been in the England team, man. I think his first series might have been the 2020 series against Pakistan, where he scored that. I think it was 267.
Yeah, he destroyed us. Yeah.
And then since then, his form has wavered, and I'm more than happy.
But even that one, even that 200 came out of nowhere. He hadn't been playing. I think he's always been a good 2020 player, and a lot of players have been saying, okay, he's the next good talent. But that 200 came out of nowhere, and since then, there hasn't been much.
He had a run of bad form after it. He did, and he was dropped from the side, I think, correctly. And he was recalled into the 2021-22 Ashes at Melbourne. At Sydney in the second innings, I think he hit 81, and really attacking innings. And it was one of those innings that actually drew that test for England. And that's what kept him in the squads. I think he made a ton in the West Indies after that. And then last summer against, we had, who did we have at home? We had South Africa and I think someone else, New Zealand.
New Zealand.
he made scores, but he didn't make big scores. But he got runs in Pakistan, Rawalpindi, and he made 50 against the Irish 2 weeks ago. So he's always, since he's been recalled, he's done enough. He's done enough to be retained, but he's not won a match, so to speak.
Yeah, but do you reckon? So this is. I know he's still young, but do you reckon this is make or break for him? Because if he fails, that's it. That's it. What bigger stage than the Ashes?
Yeah, the problem is with Zach Crawley is that pretty much every innings he's played or every game he's played for the last year and a half has been make or break, and he's been middling it a lot of the time. Like he's not been getting exceptional scores, but while he will get out in the for single figures or low double digits, some of the time he'll come off and get a 50, a 60, maybe even a ton. So yeah, he's inconsistent, but this could be the making of him. You were quite right. And also,
what about
he fits into the Bazball aesthetic perfectly. Like he's an attacking player, and with Ben Duckett at the other end, those two have put on the most opening part, like the biggest opening partnerships that England have had since Cook and Strauss were opening together, and that was over 10 years ago now.
Yeah. What about Jimmy Anderson?
Hey, so what is he now? 42, 41?
Yeah. Not a lot of Aussies. But I think he's earned his respect. This probably is going to be his last Test series or last Ashes. But we said that in the last Ashes.
we said that, yeah.
But the next one is definitely 2 years away. Surely you won't be playing as a 44-year-old.
You wouldn't think it would be worth him coming out to Australia to bowl on flat decks again with a Kookaburra.
Exactly. And he's got, and I think he's got the worst record in. I think after the subcontinent pitches, which is understandable. He's got the worst record in Australia. I think his average is really, really high. But he's really good.
He's got quite a good economy. Like the last few times he's come, he's actually bowled with a very good economy. In Australia. Chris Wokes is the one who has the awful away average and economy. But yeah, James Anderson, he just needs to keep himself fit. Like the 2019 Ashes, 4 overs in, he picks up a niggle, and England were down to 3 bowlers or 3.5 bowlers for the rest of the Test.
In Australia, his average is 34, which is by his standards, it's obviously not that good. Yeah. His overall average is 26. In England, obviously, his average is 23. So there's a 10-run difference, obviously, which is huge. But of course, everyone does well in their home country, and he's got 429 wickets in England alone. But his average, as I said, is the highest in Australia, which is 34. The second highest is in Sri Lanka, 33.
I see what you mean. Sorry, I thought you meant the highest average of all the bowlers.
Yes. Yeah. So, you're probably right. But anyway, let's not get into whether he's going to be coming in 2024.
I don't expect him to play every Test this summer. I think he'll need to take at least one game off somewhere, especially with the tests. It's 5 tests in 6 weeks, which is a crazy workload for elite athletes.
Yeah. But let's talk about another old man. He usually... we don't talk about his age, but he is also a very, very senior player in England because he's obviously under the shadows of the great Jimmy Anderson. Stuart Broad, he's also 36 years old, which is, again, it's not that old. I mean, but for a fast bowler, usually you hang up your boots at 33, 34. How do you? So Broad and Anderson, I think we're definitely going to be seeing them. Like I've been listening to some people, they're saying definitely that he might be both of them. We might see the Broad and Anderson duo.
Yeah.
How do you think he's going to go?
Yeah. I've for a long time I really disliked Stuart Broad because he just sprayed it around. He bowled a lot of bumpers and went for a lot.
What about his rivalry with Warner? And obviously,
Warner. So,
we're going to talk about him in a bit as well.
Yeah, it was probably around 2016 or so that Stuart Broad started winning my heart back. And then, as I was mentioned earlier, when James Anderson got injured, Edgbaston 2019, Stuart Broad had to carry that bowling attack for the rest of the summer. He played in all 5 tests, and he got Warner, I think it was 7 out of 10 times, going over the wicket. Sorry, it was around the wicket, wasn't it? So Warner.
And hit high.
Yeah, and just nicking him off every single time. Yeah, he's going to do it again. Like, he's become so consistent compared to how he used to bowl. He's got a lot more going on upstairs now. He has much. He approaches his bowling with much more of a game plan.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, I don't expect him to play every test. So I'm not annoyed that he was picked over Mark Woods this system.
What's happening with Mark Wood? So tell me a little bit about it, because obviously Mark Wood is that exciting cricketer that everyone wants to see, the 150 Ks. What's happening with Mark Wood? Why has he been dropped?
So the last Ashes in Australia, Mark Wood was probably our best bowler. He was the one who was actually able to, with his pace, he can hit 90 miles an hour. He can actually unsettle the Aussie batsman bowling short stuff. And he got the most wickets. I think he got the most wickets, although he only played 3 of the tests. So yeah, he hasn't been dropped, so to speak. He just hasn't been selected for this test. They're trying to wrap him in bubble wrap. I think he had a niggle a while back. So they want to try and keep him as fit for games as they possibly can. I think.
But But do you think this might have something to do with Moeen Ali's selection? Because I think Moeen Ali is playing in his place, and they're saying the Edgbaston pitch seems really, really dry. So obviously, spin's going to play a bigger role in this.
So Mo's been called back to the team because Jack Leach got injured, and England need a spinner. And they can't really rely on Joe Root to bowl his offies. So I think there always has to be a spinner, certainly at Edgbaston. And it was down to Wood versus Broad in terms of who got that final bowling spot. England weren't going to be dropping Ollie Robinson. His form in county cricket recently has been too good. He wore a moon boot about a month ago. He picked up an injury playing for Sussex. But yeah, he's looking so good this year, and he also did well in the matches he played against Australia in the last Ashes round as well. Although I think he got a bit of a pasting towards the end.
Right.
But yeah, England have had a lot of bowling injuries in the build-up to this Ashes. So Archer's out, Ollie Stone's out. Who else got rid down here? Craig Overton's out, Mahmood, all out. And they're the bowlers who are getting you towards 90 miles an hour. So Mark Wood is the only bowler we've got who's an out-and-out fast bowler.
They want to preserve him. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically, we've spoken about all the main players. Who do you think? Oh, sorry, I forgot about Joe Root. You reckon Joe Root's gonna be? We're gonna see Joe Root of old, because he's not worried about his captaincy. Or obviously, it's been almost a year since he lost it, but this is his first outing in an Ashes as just a batter. What do you reckon? You reckon he's the batter that way? Like the whole of English batting lineup is going to revolve around him?
So actually, I call you out there and see you ask if we're seeing the Joe Root of old. We never lost the Joe Root of old. The entire time Joe Root was captain, he was the one getting hundreds. He was the one coming in when the score was 8 for 2 and getting us to a semi-respectable total some of the time, not all of the time. But the good Joe, like the form Joe Root was in, I think it was 2 years ago. He made thousands of runs. Maybe it was last. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, Joe Root has made a whole lot of runs for the last few years now, and he isn't really showing any signs of stopping. I don't think he made any centuries in Pakistan in the winter. But
no, he made 150 and 1 duck, obviously, but he averaged about 25. Yeah.
But yeah, he loves English conditions, and yeah, Joe Root will want to score runs to prove he can do it against Australia. He's got centuries against Australia and England, but he's never had a century against Australia in Australia. And I suspect he will be on the plane in 2.5 years' time to come here again.
Oh yeah, he's still young enough. Yeah.
But yeah, he will want to keep that in Australia's minds that he is still a consistent player. And if you look at the top 4, it was the Fab 4 which was Kohli, Smith, Root, and Williamson. If you look at their form those 4 players' form over the last 4 or 5 years, Joe Root's the one who scored 15 centuries. No one else comes close.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's move to the Aussie side. What do you reckon about David Warner? They're saying he's probably going to retire after this Test series. He's been struggling for the last, I don't know, however many Test matches. He's 35, I think, somewhere around there. Yeah, I think it's 35, and has been through a lot, ups and downs. And this might be his Test series. So basically, he either goes with a bang or he goes with a whimper, because if he doesn't do well, I don't think he's going to be picked. What do you reckon? What are his chances? You reckon Stuart Broad is going to annoy him?
I should think so. Warner is he's your classic Australian pantomime villain. Of the last 10 years, he's been the one that England fans love to hate on. Going right back to when he punched Joe Root in a walkabout in London. Back it was at 2000, before the 2013 series. He's hated by the English, and hated even more so after the sandpaper issue. And Warner's the sort of character, I wouldn't piss on him if he was allergic to piss. But just if you look, do you know who's got a higher average out of David Warner, Usman Khawaja, or Mitchell Starc batting in England?
No, it has to be Warner. Has to be.
It's Mitchell Starc.
No way.
Yeah.
What? Obviously, you threw Mitchell Starc in because no. Okay, so that must be not out, right? Is that why it is?
If you look at his average games in England, he has a lower average than Mitchell Starc, and so is Usman Khawaja. So that's why I'm not too worried about the top of the order.
Hang on a second. Let me verify that. So Test batting in England, his average is 28. Mitchell Starc's average is 28 in England. Okay, so let's just go with Davey Warner. Where is it? Surely it's more than 28. Really? He's scored a few. He's had a couple of tons, hasn't he?
I don't know if he might have had a ton back in 2013, but he's not been that good in England.
His average is 25 in England. He's never scored a ton. He's only got 750s, 4 ducks, and he's only scored 695 runs. Oh, wow. I didn't know he was that bad. Really?
Yeah, and you doubted me. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay,
well, you did really well. Okay, so Warner you're not worried about, but okay, we've got our golden boy.
Yeah.
Smithy.
Khawaja, actually, I was going to touch on Khawaja first, because he has been in the form of his life.
But he's a hit and miss. Like, he might give us 1 ton, but he's not gonna be consistently good throughout. And he's obviously really like he saves Australia in the subcontinent conditions. He's got the centuries against both India and Pakistan in their respective countries.
His matches in Pakistan last year were phenomenal.
But in England,
we'll see if he can continue it.
Right, but in England, he might score a ton or two, but that's not something that England would be really worried about. I mean, there are 2 players that England should be really worried about. And that's obviously Steve Smith and Labuschagne. Who are you more worried about?
Probably Smith. Marnus has been one of the best batters in the world since he came into the Aussie squad, no question. But he's fallen away a bit in terms of his consistency to convert to triple digits over the last maybe 2 years. I feel like he hasn't been quite, maybe a year. He hasn't quite been hitting the same highs that he was before. It's not to say he's not a phenomenal batsman still, because he is. Whereas Steve Smith,
he's hitting that form again. He scored it. He just came off 100 against England.
He definitely tailed away after the 2019 Ashes. I remember Pakistan at home. When Australia at home to Pakistan at the end of 2019, he had a bad run of form then, and watching him bat against India last week, it feels like that step across he does in his trigger movement has got just that slightly bigger. So anything on his pads, you just know it's
going to be whipped away.
Yeah, you just know it's not worth bowling there. And like in 2019, England just didn't know how to get him out.
Because he fooled a lot of players throughout most of his career. Everyone kept bowling at his pads, thinking that because of that shuffle, that move across, and then you miss, we go up kind of thing. But then it just never happens.
Yeah, his eyes are too good. And actually, mentioning the eyes, that's something I should have said about Warner as well. Is that I'm not too worried about him, because in the last series, the South Africa series over the summer holidays here, he was getting hit by a lot of balls, and you can tell that his eyes are gone. Like his eyes aren't picking up the ball as fast. There's just short stuff. He was getting peppered. I know he did get that double ton on a very flat deck at Melbourne, but yeah, his eyes are gone. But anyway, back to
So
Smith.
Steve Smith. Steve Smith's averaging 60. Labuschagne, obviously, still early days. He's averaging 47 in England. He's only played, obviously, 5 test matches, whereas Stevie Smith has played 17. 700, 750. So his conversion rate is great, averaging 60. I also think that it's going to be Steve Smith that the Poms should be most worried about. But then after that, Labuschagne, and then Khawaja. And I think Warner is not really that much of a worry. But then obviously we've got
I think you're missing a relatively new elephant in the room here, though, which is Travis Head.
Yeah, a bit of a question mark. Still too young. I mean, he played really well against India, but the Ashes. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he plays so aggressively, though. That's one thing that could get England worried.
He took England apart in the Gabba in 2021, and
6 over square leg.
Yeah, I think he got another. He maybe got a century at Hobart, or maybe it was Sydney as well. But yeah, he took England apart in that series just by playing aggressively. Obviously, we know he can't do it on the subcontinent, but in England, like last week, was 156 he got?
Almost a run of ball.
Yeah. So, and that's against a relatively okay Indian attack. I know there were a few players short, but yeah. So Travis Head, that middle order of Marnus, Smith, Travis Head is destructive.
Right.
I'm definitely not worried about Cameron Green. We can talk about that another time. I'm not worried about his bowling either. Alex Carey, he's starting to get runs. He's okay.
But I think but I reckon on paper, when I look at the English batting lineup, Joe Root, okay, all right, but the rest is not really that threatening. But here you've got Steve Smith leading the pack, Marnus Labuschagne, okay, bit of a question mark. Usman Khawaja is always going to be there. He's not going to give away his wicket so easily. And then you've obviously got Travis Head and Alex Carey. I mean, these players can always be very, very handy. Across the board, batting wise, who do you think has got a better?
I think
which team you reckon is more capable of scoring 450 runs plus?
England.
Really?
Definitely. First off, they're playing at home. Secondly, the players have been given license to not be so defensive, to go out and score quickly, and that suits these players. If you look at the top 7, from Crawley, Duckett, Ollie Pope, Joe Root, Harry Brook, Ben Stokes, Johnny Bairstow, even Moeen Ali coming in at 8, they're all attacking players.
Come on, Moeen Ali is just, I don't know, so overrated. His batting is so overrated.
I know that the end of his red ball career, like the Australians retired him for the 3rd time.
Anyway, okay. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay, fair enough. I reckon Australian. I reckon the Aussies are well capable of scoring up to 450 runs, and obviously so is England. They're playing at home, and they're more comfortable with the conditions. Let's just now go to a final segment, which is obviously Aussie bowling.
Yeah,
Stark can be a bit wayward, but his pace has still got that X factor. He can still, trouble anyone. Short burst,
he goes
pace
for runs, but he picks up the occasional wicket. Like I think last week in the championship final, he so in that first innings he was spraying it around and was getting knocked about. In the second innings, he got a few wickets towards the end, and that's where he got his nickname from. The sweeper was it that picks up the tail end wickets? I can't remember off the top of my head now. That's what he was known for.
Right.
But yeah, he will be like the Australian pace attack will be rested in and out. I suspect Scott Boland will get the first test. they'll rest Hazelwood, I think.
Yeah, that's what that's what they're saying. But Hazelwood reckons he should have played the last game against India as well. But the stories that are they want to preserve them because it's 5 test matches over 6 weeks, or if you include the Indian matches, like 6 test matches in 7
read an
weeks.
interview maybe yesterday where he said he'd be happy if he played 4 out of the 6 tests. He'd be happy if he played 3 out of the 6 tests. He'd be elated if he played 4. So he's going into it at quite a realistic point of view because out of all the Aussie bowlers, he's probably the one that's made of glass the most.
Right.
The one who's most likely to just get a random slight twinge or niggle. He's probably the least threatening of that pace attack as well.
Yeah, but what about his line and length? I mean, he's been like I know he's been struggling. They haven't played much Test cricket over the last year or so, but Hazelwood at top. I mean, he was the closest thing Australia had to Glenn McGrath.
So, but if you're talking about hitting a line of length, hitting a handkerchief on the wicket sort of thing, Scott Boland's the person you picked for that.
Yeah, but Scott Boland. Yeah, but he bowls an in swinger. Yeah,
he's not as fast, but he will hit that line of length consistently.
So you reckon Scotty Boland? He's been like I think he's averaging only like 15 runs or something. His run is just not ending.
I think like if you look at bowlers who've taken more than I think it's 20 wickets, he's got the third best average in Test history, which is just crazy for someone who only debuted at age 30 odds 18 months ago. The MCG.
He's averaging 14.57 of 8 Test matches. He's taken 33 wickets. I remember Vernon Philander. He had a really good start. But obviously, I mean, this thing comes to an end at some point. But anyway, he's a Melbourne boy. So Scotty Boland, you reckon he's going to annoy? But what about Paddy Cummins?
Well, Pat's obviously in the team, not just for his smoulderingly good looks, but also his really good bowling. But he's for. I don't think it's too controversial to say that he's the best bowler in the world and has been for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
For the consistent pace and areas that he puts it in, the rewards he gets, he's done a really good job as captain. Traditionally, they don't give captaincies to bowlers, but he's done fairly well.
Right.
We've probably put this up on a different another time, but there isn't. Pat Cummins does have an issue, I think, in captaincy when it comes to bowling out the team in the 4th innings. It's not something that Australia have been great at since he took over. And then the final bowler in the attack is Nathan Lyon, who the Australians refer to as the GOAT. Despite having only taken, 480-ish wickets, he'll be pursuing the 500 this summer.
Yeah.
And
187 wickets, yeah.
It's interesting.
In England, averaging about 30, which is okay, which is decent.
Yeah, so that's where I was going to go. In the 2019 Ashes, Nathan Lyon took a 6-foot Edgbaston, I think in the 2nd innings, and everyone was like, "Oh, great! He's going to get the goats on the roll. He's going to demolish England. He's going to get his 400 wickets this summer." And then he barely got any wickets for the rest of the summer. He just sort of disappeared, and obviously, very famously fumbled the ball at Headingley as well.
And
actually, he had by his standards, had a very, very bad summer. So he'll have something to prove this time around. He's not got the most variety when it comes to spin bowling. He's got about as much variety as.
Yeah, but he's very similar to Graham Swan. Neither does Swan. Didn't have much either, but it's just standard off break. These guys don't bowl deuces.
Yeah, you have to do a job, and that's what he's done for a long 10 years now. He's done a very good job of it. One last thing just on the Aussie bowlers. I'd like to see Michael Neser play. I think Neser has to play at some point this summer.
Yeah, maybe at some point.
He's been so good in county cricket. He got a ton as well with the bat about a month ago. He's been picking up fifers. If one of the pace quartet gets injured or say starts getting smashed around, Michael Neser would be a fantastic replacement.
Right. Okay. So, final word: who wins the toss and who bats? Obviously, the cloud cover. No other country, no other place where cloud cover plays an important role as it does in England. So obviously, have you looked at the forecast? I mean, it's only 2 hours away, though.
Yeah, I looked earlier. I think it's supposed to be slightly cloudy today, so it would be a good day to bowl on if that is the case, especially in the morning. But there's supposed to be a bit of rain about for the next few days as well. So yeah, if I'm England and I win the toss, I probably put Australia in and fancy chasing it down in the fourth innings if we get there.
And that's also because you say that Pat Cummins' record in the fourth inning hasn't been that good. Okay, all right, that's it. Thank you very much for your input.
Sorry, one last thing, Harry. We didn't do our predictions for series.
Oh, yes, predictions. Yeah, your prediction. Okay, prediction of the series.
My prediction is 2-1 to England.
2-1 to England.
Yeah, I think there'll be a couple of draws in there due to weather and the Aussies batting too long.
Aussies? No way.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. I would say. Oh yeah, actually, that's true. Like, I mean, if we get one draw, then I don't think I can have 3-1 for England. I don't think so. Yeah. What the hell? I'll say 2. It's so difficult. I know England would be the favorites, but I don't want to rule out Australia. But anyway, let's just go 3-1 Australia. How about that? Yeah, 3-1 Australia.
We'll see.
Go Aussies! All right, people. We'll join again maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Until next, let's hope you enjoy the test match.